Welcome back to session 4. Hey, and before we finish this session, just want to say that I would love to be a resource to you if there's any way I can be of help in your journey as a leadership team in your growth. I do ministry coaching by phone on a monthly basis. Our sessions, I can come and speak and do strategic planning at your site. And also, if you just want to keep in touch through just good growth, leadership, and self-leadership stuff, you can go to my website, paulcasey.org, and right in the middle of the page there's 11 tips to avoid burnout. Click on that, put your email address in, and then you'll be opted into just a steady dose, no spam, but a steady dose of leadership for your team and for yourself, and it just keeps us in touch. And you can always email me. You see my Twitter address there on the screen, and we can just keep in touch. Just want to be a resource for you any way I can. So thanks again for joining me on this journey today, and glad that I could have just a little slice of influence in your life. Thanks to the Lord. All glory be to Him. All right, so far we have traveled the journey inward. We've done some self-leadership and characteristics of a godly leader and a little bit of time management. We have done the journey upward, which is the vision and also the big picture things that you need to have on your radar every day. And in this last session, we're going to look at the journey downward or outward per se of trying to convince you to be a reproducer in your ministry, being a disciple maker that makes other disciples, being a great top traits of terrific team leaders is what I'm calling this one, so that you can lead strategically and biblically in your relationships. As I mentioned earlier, Maxwell says one is too small a number to achieve greatness. So it's essential to recruit and build and train a team, not just a group, but a team of staff and volunteer staff. So let me try to convince you right off the bat here of the benefits of your staff and your ministry leaders becoming a team. The first reason is there is a synergy. Love that word. You know, maybe it's thrown around a little too much, but I still remember the definition, like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. You know, when I learned that word years ago, there's a synergy that allows your people to produce more together than they could have done individually. And as you see, Alexander Graham Bell said, great discoveries and improvements invariably involve the cooperation of many minds, not just making decisions in a vacuum. A second reason is the team gets taught the priority of showing care and concern toward one another. So instead of antagonism, where we're just, you know, being sort of a boat anchor, a nepotism where we don't really care, we get to do the one another's in Scripture together when we truly have a team. And people then begin to learn how to celebrate actions that benefit others. And you see on the screen, we're all connected through compassion. It's about taking care of each other as if we're all part of an extended family. A third reason to mold your group into a team is everyone gets to contribute to the success in the way that they are wired, the way God has gifted them. And you know, it feels great to contribute. It's like the people that decide they get restless and they leave organizations is because they don't feel like they're making a contribution. They could say it's the salary. Sometimes that's true. They could say it's a leadership issue. A lot of times that's true too. But sometimes it's just they've lost their why and they are not contributing, and so they drift away. Another reason is the load of running an effective organization is shared. I don't know if any of you are bikers, but you know, if you watch Tour de France or any of those bike races, there's a concept called drafting. And drafting is where there's someone out in front and everybody else lines up behind them. And you know, when I first watched biking, I'm like, why do they do that? You know, why isn't somebody trying to pass somebody? But you realize that person up front is taking all that headwind. They're taking the brunt of the weather, and everybody else is just sort of lined up behind them, benefiting from that leader taking a lot of the hits. But then eventually one of those people will drop back and someone else will come in and they'll take their turn at the front. And so that's how it is in leadership. When we do have a team leadership, you don't always have to be out front. You can enroll your team to be the one that comes out in front and leads portions of meetings and initiatives, so you don't have to. Another reason is you enjoy going to meetings with a true team. So if you hate going to a meeting with those people that are sitting around you right now, you can growl at them. No, just kidding. It could be that you haven't really melded together yet as a true team. But otherwise, I love going to meetings with people who are true team members, who are for each other. and it really is a sign that you're becoming a good team. Another reason is it leads to a healthy environment where people can thrive. A team culture can be very, very healthy. Patrick Lencioni, I've quoted him earlier today, he wrote a book called The Advantage. And in the book, The Advantage, he says that the #1 job of a leader is to promote a healthy culture. And I've never looked at it that way. I've seen so many other #1 things for a leader, but he says it is the most important that you develop a healthy organization as a leader. And one more reason to convince you to meld your group into a team is it makes you better than you are alone. It multiplies your own personal value, and it enables you to do what you do best. And I'm reminded of Ecclesiastes 4, which was in our wedding, that 2 are better than 1. One falls down, there's someone to lift him up, you know, and it takes 2 to keep warm when it's really cold and so forth. 2 really are better than 1, and a team, of course, is better than just a solo leader. So what is a team? Ken Blanchard, there's a lot of definitions of a team, but he basically says it's 2 or more people who must work together to accomplish a common purpose and are held accountable for the results. And you see some pieces in there. Pretty general definition of a team. And it's the leader's job to be the team builder. They're like the chief team builder, you know, chief TBO, you know, team building officer. Maxwell says in the Law of the Edge that the difference between 2 equally talented teams, like if I had your church ministry team and one of the other cohort ministry teams and everything was equal, amount of experience on a church staff and talents, the difference would be leadership. That would be the main difference. One succeeds over the other. My favorite leadership quote is a Maxwellism, and it's everything rises and falls on leadership. If you see any problem broken in the church, usually it can be tied somewhere back to a leadership issue if you follow that rabbit back to its hole. A leader must have a magnet in his heart, and that's relationships, and a compass in his head, that's vision. Any follower, like I said, wants to know, do you care about me and where are you taking me? So that's so important. So if you agree with me so far, make the decision to build your group into a team. People don't default to teamwork, right? They default to self-centeredness. That is their default mode, is like it's all about me. So teamwork, team building takes effort. And while we've touched on some of these today, let's go into a little bit more detail because of the importance of team leadership. So here are some of the top traits and actions of terrific ministry team leaders. Whether you're the top leader or you're shepherding volunteers in your specific ministry department and your team. #1 is to hire and enroll team players. Hire and enroll team players. The most valuable employees and lay leaders are good team players. They're ready to support the team's and the church's goals above their own personal objectives. So you need to gather the best people. You need to hire 10s. What happens in leadership sometimes is when we have a little bit of a self-confidence dip, so we might be like an 8 leader, and so we hire 6s. Okay, so then you know, when we leave the church, the 6th leader now hires a 4, and so we're really not getting top quality leaders. Even if you're an 8 leader and you're just being real about your skills and your talents, hire 10s. Hire people that are even better at you. Don't be threatened that, oh, they're going to replace you someday, and if so, great. Then God's going to call you to something else where you're a 10. But hire those 10s. So when you're recruiting leaders, you see on the screen, look for some of these things. Look for their character, which is where we started today. Look for boldness, because you want people that aren't going to waffle under pressure. You want them to stay true to the mission and vision. Look for creativity, because that's going to keep you out of those ruts and that death cycle that we explained in the last session. Look for problem solvers, because leaders are known by the problems they solve, and you definitely don't want your ministry team coming back to you all the time, like every day, saying, so how are we going to solve this one, boss? We want people that independently will take on some initiative to try to get that problem solved. Even if they mess up, you're going to praise them because they at least took some initiative. And then definitely look for relators. We need people persons in our ministry teams. I was once at a church where some of the church members said, well, our pastor isn't a people person. I was thinking, what? That sounds like an oxymoron. You know, my pastor is not a people person. That's the whole ministry, you know, is about people. So you definitely want as many relators on the team. Even if you have introverts, you definitely want them all to have some people skills, or at least you're going to coach that way. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. And number 2, we've hit a lot today, and that is establish the purpose of being a team. And you see that big word vision again. And what I mean in this one specifically is the vision of being a team. So you've got the church vision, we've already talked about that, but this is why we need to bond together. Again, if it's just you and your children's ministry team together and your 5 volunteers, you're going to try to persuade them to be a team. So vision determines the direction and the confidence of the team. Vision always has to precede the reality. They are in conjunction with each other, and you have to come to the table with a clear expectations of where you want to go, or else people are always going to be bumping into, like the remote control car, into the oven. The obstacle to team effectiveness, you see there on the screen, is that everyone is not on the same page. And this is where people are running pell-mell, and it's amazing that when people are confused, they don't pursue the vision, they use it as an excuse. Well, I didn't know, or no one ever told me that, or you told me this one day and this and that, and you just sort of lost it. So don't give people an excuse to not pursue the vision by not being clear. Clarity is king. Also, lead, don't dictate. Dwight Eisenhower said that banging people over the head is assault, not leadership. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. We want to inspire them into teamwork. We can't force them to be a team. So we have to convince them of the brighter future, sort of like that burning platform again. And we can't stay here just disjointed bunch of silos. We have to actually become a team, and it's going to be way better on the other side of this. One of the 6 qualities of leaders who guide highly effective teams is they inspire others around them. So I like this this phrase there in the middle. It sort of rhymes, right? Hire, inspire, and light a fire. Those are 3 jobs that only leaders can do. Followers don't do those. They hire the 10s, they inspire them into this, and sometimes, once in a while, you've got to light a fire under people by reconnecting them to the why. You sort of have to impress on people that if they're going to be successful, we're going to be successful together. We either go down as a ship or we succeed together, and I would so much rather succeed together. I think David was a good example of this in the Bible, and I was just reading in my quiet time this last week, and he had that ragtag bunch of warriors, sort of the cast-offs when he was running from Saul, and he was like a magnet. People just were drawn to him. They were sort of the misfits of society, but they were mighty men. So they weren't just slough-offs. And he just somehow brought all those people together to make a successful team, even though it was under highly adverse situation. Your goal is, like a good coach, to get them to play over their heads. Because just a loamer this way, like if you're going to the gym, you try to exercise by yourself, you're going to dog it once in a while. I know I do. But then you got the trainer saying, give me 5 more, go 15 more seconds. You somehow find it in you to play over your head and to put in that extra effort. Another exercise you can do is take that values sheet that I showed you earlier and make some team values together so they co-create it together. And we did this as a team at our last church. We had a custodian and an admin assistant and a pastor and a ministry leader and a volunteer all together to make those values as a staff. And eventually we were going to get those put on the wall, like unity in Christ and openness and honesty and contribution, put a scripture with that, and then constantly readdress those values. Vision, of course, is never caught completely the first time, so you have to keep reteaching it, like I taught you earlier. Number 3, there are some of the examples, by the way, of some team values: unity, partnership, focus. Number 3 is to learn the individuality of each team member. So in other words, we have to be students of our team members. I can give you a 5-minute personality survey. I like the animal personality style. Maybe you've done that one before, but otter, lion, golden retriever, and beaver. So it's just a 5-minute one. It's fun. You can poke fun at each other through this. God wired us this way, right? So it's fun to laugh at ourselves on this. Like, you're being such a lion again. Cut it out. But when we know that our style is a certain way, then we realize the people around us are not that way. It gives us more compassion and helps us be more respectful and compassionate with others who are not thinking the same way we are. And if we can custom treat our team members based on their personality style and other things, I just think that's really respectful. We're going to get more buy-in that way. People are going to feel like, wow, you studied me. You actually know what I'm like. So again, email me that and I'll send you that quick 5-minute survey, and I can even give you more information on how to bring the best out of your style and how to customize your style for the ones that are not like you. We should just try to figure out what can our fellow teammates handle, what maxes them out, what are they specifically good at. Rick Warren had the SHAPE philosophy, right? S was spiritual gifts, H was heart or passion, A was your abilities, P was your personality, and E was your experiences. I think that was in one of the purpose-driven books. So if you know people's shape, you can really plug them into ministry in their sweet spot. What do they care about? What do they need most to succeed? And often this gets revealed by doing those one-to-one sessions with each of your leaders. You're going to learn this about, ask them a different question every time, and by the end of a year, you're going to have a composite of this person, and you're going to get really close in relationship. Number 4 is consistently show how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And I mean by pieces of the puzzle is like the places on the team. How does everybody fit together to make that actual team? Because an effective team consists of diversely gifted people that have differing styles, personalities, strengths, and perspectives. Sometimes that's annoying, right? Because it's like, it's not mine. But actually, this is a gift. Diversity is a gift. And you want to fill your team with not clones of you, but you want to have different perspectives around the table so that you have better wisdom. You work together, but everyone's got a particular job on the team to do, or else they wouldn't be needed. So everyone is in their spiritual gift zone, and boy, they're just lit up when you do that. You see on the screen there, make sure that each individual knows what she needs to do to add the most value to the team. Sometimes you just have to call them out, like, Marilyn, the team needs you to be that relational glue for us when we get really stuck. Or, Bobby, we need you to keep those numbers straight in the finance department because the rest of us aren't really gifted at that. Please give us updates when we're getting a little close to the end of our line items there. So we actually call that greatness out of each other, and that makes people feel very valued. Like even in public, you can say, if it weren't for Tiffany bringing her A game of whatever she does best, there's no way we would have accomplished that goal in that last event that we had together. Wow, that makes Tiffany feel like $1 million because you said that publicly in front of the staff. Keep team players from doing too many things that they aren't good at. Place them in their strength zone. Let me give you another book recommendation. I know you got a whole list now. You'll never read them all in this year, right? But if you want to know the different strengths of everybody on your team, get the book Strengths Finder 2.0. Strengths Finder 2.0 by Tom Rath, R-A-T-H. And in this book, and you don't even have to buy the book nowadays, you can just go on Strengths Finder website and buy it for like $12 a person. And they're going to make you take this little survey, and you have to go one way or the other. At the end of the survey, it's going to spit out your 5 top strengths. Now, it's not like most surveys, which only have 4. This has 34 different strengths. There you go, Strengths Finder 2.0. 34 different strengths. I've never seen a leadership survey like this before. And when you read your 5 strengths, you go, wow, this is like somebody's reading my mail. I mean, this is like, it'll give you pages of how to bring the best out of your strength zone. And then, as a ministry team leader, you can go, wow, you need to be doing this more because you're great at this. It's clearly, I never noticed this about you, but you need to be in this area of our ministry. Number 5 is to mix it up. Mix it up. Create opportunities for staff to work together cooperatively as well as just relationally getting to know each other. Relationships determine the morale of the team. And highly effective teams are deeply committed to one another. There's a high level of trust. There's a book that talks about the 6 main components of a healthy team. And it's called the performance factor. I'll get back to that one a little bit later. But here's the 6 things if you want to draw a wheel there on your paper, there in your handout. A couple things on there. So we have common purpose. That's the first part, which is our reason for why we're doing this. So again, that's our mission. And we've got crystal clear roles. That's our strategy for cooperation. Does everybody in our team know what everybody else on the team is doing and where those boundary lines cross and where they're separate. The third thing is accepted leadership. That's the structure. So what is the org chart that you have, and is everybody on board with that? The fourth one is effective processes. This is the process for cooperation. We'll get to that one in a couple minutes, because if you're just running your church loosey-goosey, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. The fifth one is solid relationships. That's the one we're talking about right here. That's the climate for cooperation. I was always taught climate and weather is like weather over time is climate. So what is the weather over time in your relationships on your church staff? And then number 6 is excellent communication, which is the means of our cooperation with one another. And every leadership survey you're going to do with your people, it's always going to come back with, we need better communication. So just get ready for that. They're always going to say that, and we can keep working on it and get better and better at it. One of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, another book recommend for you. You're like, Paul, stop. Okay, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Pat Lencioni is one of the classics out there. And in this, it's an allegory story. He lists 5 things that teams do not do well. And you can look at this real quick and see maybe if one of these is on your team that you need to do better. But if you look there at the bottom, the absence of trust is at the very bottom. If you don't have trust, you don't have anything. The whole pyramid falls apart. So that's why the relationship piece is so important. Then you see fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. Again, that's a whole other seminar. What I wanted you to see is that very bottom one. If you don't have trust, you don't have anything. Up to 80% of individual energy will be focused on potential or actual conflict if you don't have trust. 80% of your ministry life will be in conflict. That doesn't sound very appealing. That probably makes some of you want to resign right now. Well, you don't have to. You just have to work on this relationship piece every single day. Trust is built by spending time working together in integrity. And what I've found is the more I get to know people, the less I judge them or prejudge them. I was on a church board once while I was on staff, and then there was board members there. And this one guy kept voting no all the time. Every time he was like, no, no, and I was like, what a grumpy guy. Why is he always the boat anchor? He's always the one voting no on every single decision. Why won't he just do what the pastors want, And I was getting really frustrated with him in my first few months at that church. Well, I decided my strategy was to take every board member out for coffee to get to know them and build a relationship. Well, when I got to him, I was sort of dreading it, like, oh, I'm going to find out how grumpy he really is. Actually, we really hit it off. He told his story, I told mine. We hugged at the end of that, and to this day, we still give each other a hug when we see each other. We're not even at the same church anymore, and we've built such a relationship that I really understood where he was coming from. He got me, and I stopped prejudging him in my mind. That's what the power of relationships can do for you. So have that diverse shared experience. You might even have to do like a ropes course together, or like I said, go on these retreats, because Jesus and his disciples did life together, and that made them very tight as a team, and so we can do that as well. Number 6. Number 6 is have fun. You're like, oh, if you're the fun person on your team, you're like, oh yeah, we're finally there. Okay, this is the one I can buy into. I was checking out a minute ago, but now I'm back with you, Paul. You know what? Jesus had fun. You're like, well, show me that in the scripture. Well, he went to dinner parties. He went to weddings. I'm sure he chuckled, at some of the disciples and what they had to say. But fun generates positive feelings. And the team that plays together stays together. So I would encourage you to plan the out-of-the-box experiences. If you're the senior pastor, like, well, okay, I'm a little stiff sometimes, then get someone on your team who is the fun, yuck-it-up kind of person, and employ them to be the one who plans the Christmas parties and the other fun things for the staff. This is the person that says, we should have our staff meeting outside this week. Okay, you need that person to say that because it's going to give you a different perspective. You need to go go-karting once in a while, or go see a movie together, whatever you're going to do just to build this fun culture together. You can even write a theme song together, build a mosaic. Just do fun stuff that's outside the box. What you're trying to do is create this culture, this sense of tribe with these rituals that you might do. Culture is a place where people say, this is the way we do things around here. So, for instance, let's say you hire a new staff member and you're orienting them, and so that you walk the person around everybody's office and they get to know the people they're going to be interacting. Hopefully, after a while, this person has heard from all these different staff members this is the way we do things around here, and they get that composite, that sense of culture. Funny thing we did is whenever a new staff member was hired and they came to their first staff meeting, secretly we would give everybody a handful of marshmallows, and the person would stand and we'd say, we'd like to initiate you to our staff, 1, 2, 3, and we would pelt them all with marshmallows. Now you're saying, wow, that's so disrespectful. It was really fun. And of course we crawled around. We didn't make the custodian pick up all our marshmallows. You know, we did that for him, and it was just a fun way. It didn't hurt. Or, okay, and this one lady said, no, you're hurting them. No, we didn't hurt them. It was really fun. You don't have to do marshmallows, but you can do something fun that's just part of your culture. So you can do something when you're like for new hires. Number 7, develop processes that encourage teamwork. Processes are critical to team productivity. Now, you might not be a process person. I am. I'm that beaver personality, that task administrator kind of person. Again, you can smile at the person in your group that's like that. Okay, that always want to make sure there's a process for everything. Sometimes I think a system can solve anything. Now, I know that's not true, but it's like if Janie and James aren't getting together, they never talk, then we're going to schedule a meeting at 10 o'clock on Tuesdays so those two people always talk, you know. And I know you can't solve everything with the system, but processes are very critical for productivity. So if on your handout there you want to draw sort of like an X or a cross on there, here's what this is going to look like. So you've got on one side, you've got the personal. This is who I am. We sort of started with that with our character. Then you see down in the corner you've got relational. And that's what we just talked about, how we relate to others and our personality styles. Then you see strategic up in the corner, which is what we need to do. Okay, this is our vision, our strategic plan, our thematic goal. And now we're down in this bottom corner over here with process. How are we going to do these things so they actually get done? So everybody just doesn't brainstorm it at one time and then we all walk away from it. But again, who does what, when, and how? Processes are the labor-intensive things to do up front. It costs you time to make a process and energy, and that's why a lot of people go, okay, I'm a little bored with that. I need to move on to something a little bit more exciting that has to do with people. But you know what? If you don't have this, sometimes you lose that safety net. So if you're willing to invest, you and your team will receive a better church life. One process is like multiplying leadership opportunities for everyone on staff. That would be a process. Everyone gets a chance to lead something. On every staff meeting, you would have a leader not talking all the time. You would have different people reporting on different things. I love how Moses brought Joshua along in a very hands-on way. You just see Moses, then you see, and Joshua the son of Nun was with him, you know, and all these different ways until finally Joshua became the leader. He got a lot of on-the-job training, and that was a process, whether Moses knew it or not that he was doing that. He was bringing him along in a mentoring role. We have to empower the staff with responsibility and authority. Sometimes we give the people on our team responsibility, and that gives them the desire. Hey, the team's counting on you. You're like, yay, the person goes to work. But then we pull the rug out from them because we don't give them the authority to do it. And that gives them the means to make the decision to act on the benefit of the team. Now, will sometimes they make a mistake? Sure. But that's okay because we want an innovative culture, right? So we just have a debrief with them. We say, so how can we avoid that happening in the future? What did you learn from that process? But we don't pull the rug out from them and take that authority away because that actually gets them angry. You gave me responsibility, but you don't give me the authority. I might as well not even have that position. You can allow some group decision making that you can live with, of course, because if you don't invite people to give their input, you're probably not going to get the best thinking on the project. So one system you could have, one process, is to adopt some sample team operating principles. I'm going to put 4 there on the screen for you. And this is, again, they're sort of like the team values, but this is sort of how we're going to behave with one another. Like we're open and honest. We treat each other with dignity and respect. Everyone's voice is heard. You have to make it like you. Don't steal mine unless you really like these, but you're going to find ones that really apply to your team. Everybody contributes, and then it's almost like you sign on the dotted line like, yes, I agree, we're going to abide by this. Get it framed, put it on the wall in your conference room or wherever you have your team meetings, and remind everybody once in a while these are operating principles. A good time to remind this is when you bring a new person on the team or you have a visitor, because you're like, hey, this is our operating principles. You're not saying it for the new person. You're reminding everybody else around the table what they are so that they'll stay bought into it. Another system or process is being a safe enough leader that people can say just about anything, where everyone's voice truly is heard, and there's really good collaboration on the team. It allows creative people to fly their thoughts without everybody shooting at them. You know, I'm a pretty creative guy, and I come to a meeting and I just throw my fragile idea out on the table, and if everybody goes bang, 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 like that'll never work, then I'm like, I'm out. Okay, I'm not going to say anything for the rest of the time because my idea got shot at. Nobody even entertained it. Nobody said, you know, well, I like that idea, and, you know, and they fed to it. That's a process that comes through these operating principles. Also, you see, I'll put on the screen there, encourage constructive dissent. You're like, how is that a process? Well, it helps you get the best wisdom in the room. So once in a while as the leader, you can go, does anyone disagree? Okay, that's a vulnerable question because you don't want anyone to disagree. You want everyone to say yes, right? But no, we have to encourage that constructive dissent. Peter and Paul had it out, you know, in a big team meeting in Scripture. Look it up. I mean, they didn't agree on something. The key is that you don't take everything personally, that it's like this issue on the table and it's not connected to you. This is really hard to do. Hard to do for me too. But it's like I give my idea and I stick it there on the table. Now we're all going to talk about this idea. I gave it, but it's the idea we're talking about there, whether it has merit or not. I have to sort of emotionally back up from the idea, not get too attached. And what I like to do and give out in my seminar are little Q-tips. That's what this is, the Q-tip. And so what does Q-tip stand for? It stands for quit taking it personally. And if you struggle with this because you want to be a pleaser, want everyone to like you, sometimes we get a little too attached to our ideas, and we have to remember the Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. I put there at the bottom, if there's no tension, you're not leading. You're like, ooh, I don't like that. Well, that probably means that you're just either ramrodding all your ideas through, or you've surrounded yourself with yes people, or you haven't made it safe enough for some people to push back respectfully with an even better idea. Don't be threatened by questions. Just remember the 101% principle. Find the 1% you can agree on and give that 100% of effort. A real team that trusts each other has more in-person, in-meeting conversations than one-on-one parking lot conversations. I mentioned that earlier. Number 8. Number 8 is to praise actions that benefit the whole church or the team. Praise the actions that are actually in line with where you're trying to go with this vision of creating a team. You see the number 1 management principle there on the screen. It goes like this: what gets rewarded gets done. What gets rewarded gets done. So if you give regular positive feedback to people, they're probably going to keep doing what you want them to do. If you ignore or starve the good stuff that people's doing by not validating it, they may, after a while, go, well, I guess that's not really important around here to my boss or this church, so I'm going to stop doing it. And then you'll get called on the carpet for it later, and it's like, wait, I was doing this, but you didn't praise me for it, and it gets really confusing. So what you want more of, you need to validate. Success is easier when you know what it looks like. Success is easier when you know what it looks like. So as soon as Frank over here decides to reach out and make 7 recruitment phone calls for his youth ministry, the pastor and the staff, you know, go, there it is. That's what we're after right here. He made 7 calls this week to try to recruit another leader. He wasn't satisfied with the leaders that he has. He's always trying to get a new leader in the pipeline. And then Frank's, of course, going to do way more of that because the pastor in front of everyone validated that that's what it is. If you notice what Jesus did, he praised those with faith whenever he saw it. One time he's like, I have never seen so much faith in all of Israel as this guy has right here. That's pretty cool. I mean, can you imagine being that guy? Like, did the Son of God just say that about me? I mean, that's a pretty great compliment in Scripture. Now we have it. He praised the widow's mite giving to the disciples, saying, look, she gave everything she had right there. Validated Peter's announcement that he was God and said, wow, that hasn't even been given to you by you, Peter. I mean, that was the Holy Spirit going through you to say that kind of thing. So Jesus actually practiced this praise principle. Members that feel underappreciated don't contribute to the team. 95% of employees say the only feedback they get is feedback for improvement. Yikes! 95% of employees actually say the only feedback they get is the negative stuff, like knock it off, stop doing that, do more of that. They don't actually get that positive feedback. So I would encourage you to flip that around and make it 95% of this is what we need you to keep doing, and create those short-term wins that build momentum for that staff member to keep growing. Success gives confidence in teams, and nothing hurts when you're winning. I used to play soccer. That was my game growing up. I was in Christian school, you know. I was pretty good on my Christian school team, you know. Well, our competition wasn't that great, you know, but it was fun. That was my game in school, right? And so when we were losing and I would get kicked in the shins, I'd be like, oh, coach, pull me out. You know, I'd roll on the ground a little bit. You know, soccer players are so great at that. Like, oh, my leg hurts so bad, and they're usually faking it, right? But when we're winning and we're about to win the championship, I get kicked in the shin. It's like, I'm going to keep going, you know, because we're winning. And it's really true. So that's why in our ministry we need to keep that momentum going with positive stuff so people don't be not realistic, but I'm saying is keep those short-term wins going to keep people pumped up. Storytelling is powerful in this way. Sharing the credit is really powerful in this way. The point here is nothing motivates a team like recognition. Nothing motivates a team like recognition. So you could surprise your staff with group rewards, like maybe at a big missions conference. You know, there was a lot of work. Everybody was all hands on deck, and you got through it, and there were wins. Someone was called to missions. A lot of money was donated to the missionary. Throw a party. Why not? Okay, show the team all that work, that you recognize that, and we're going to even do better next year on that. The applause of a single human being is of great consequence, says Samuel Johnson. Nothing motivates a team like recognition. Number 9, give feedback to gently correct actions that are off purpose. We just talked about feedback. We want it to be a lot positive, right? Okay, now we got to talk about the hard thing. I was going to do a whole session on conflict resolution, but you're going to get that later in the cohort process of CB Matrix. So I'm just going to mention it here, is that sometimes we've got to gently guide people that are getting off into the weeds to get back onto the right purpose. Pat Riley says teamwork requires that everyone's effort flow in the single direction. So it is super important to not let somebody get off on their own thing. We have to bring them back to the values. Values are really, values can become the bad guy. I don't mean the bad guy, but if you're like, you know, you call that person in, they sit down, they're a little nervous, you know, and you don't really like confronting either, right? It's not really like, woohoo, I get to confront today. But when you have to do that, if you can bring them back down. Now remember, Enrico, when we have on our team, one of our values is punctuality. You know, and you just keep. I've seen you come in late for so much, and showed up late for our team retreat. And can we both agree that we need to have this because it's respectful to our team? And when you do stuff like that, you draw them back to the values, and you're sort of bringing them back on track to where they need to be. And usually they're going to nod your head. They're going to nod their head with you because they've already agreed to that thing that's on the wall together. That's why it's super important to have that. Selfish ambition will destroy a team, and one bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. Because as you know, bad attitudes compound faster than good attitudes. I wish it wasn't that way, right? But you look at the story of Achan, you know, in the book of Joshua, and that one bad apple cost, I think it was 36 lives in the battle of Ai because he had stole something from Jericho. So 36 people died because the one bad apple stole some stuff when God told them, don't take anything out of Jericho. So there is damage in the body of Christ when we let someone just go off on their own and either in sin or in some other off-value behavior. Sometimes we have to have that crucial confrontation, and we don't want to do that, but it's critical. Show team members how their team-hurting actions actually step on their teammates' air hose. This is a concept from the book Love and Respect, one of the best marriage books out there right now by Emerson Eggerichs, and he talks about that as a couple. You should tell each other when you're stepping on my air hose. So it's like we need oxygen to breathe in our relationship, and sometimes when we criticize and withdraw our emotions and stuff, we step on our partner's air hose so we can't breathe. We're suffocating in the relationship. So we have to show team members that are off purpose, you're actually stepping on the team's air hose. We can't breathe as a team together if you continue doing that. Better yet, try to have them identify how they're stepping on the team's air hose and drive the thinking back to them. Kobe Yamada said this, that Either we're pulling together or we're pulling apart. There really is no in between. How I showed this in a staff meeting once is I brought one of those tug-of-war ropes from camp. You know, it's the only time you ever do tug-of-war is when you're at camp, you know, like family camp. And so I brought the tug-of-war rope. I had us all get on one side of the rope, and I said, okay, let's pull. And, of course, we just sort of walked, you know, to the other end of the room. Okay, let's put the rope back. And then I had, like, Robert go on the other side of the rope. And so now he was pulling against us. Now, we still pulled Robert, pretty much made him fall over, you know, during that exercise. But, again, there was a little bit of resistance, and it wasn't quite as easy, but we still pulled. Then I had half the team get on the other side of the rope. And now we had a full tug-of-war match. And I didn't make the game go on any further than that. The point was, do you see all that resistance that happens when we aren't pulling in the same direction? And that was just one way I used a metaphor or an experience to teach this principle. So when something isn't going well, you as the leader have to be the one who encourages your team to look for the light at the end of the tunnel. And we don't want to have that weak link be the one that's driving the ship, the tail that's wagging the dog. Maxwell says that if you're on a softball team and you have to hit the ball and grab a hand of a guy named Charlie and drag him to first base, so you hit the ball, you drag Charlie, you hit the ball, you drag. After a while, you just want to hit Charlie, you know, because he's pulling you down, he's dragging you down, and so don't be the Charlie on the team, and don't allow the Charlie on the team. Sorry if any of your names is Charlie, but don't be the Charlie on the team that is actually that one that everybody has to drag into the vision, because it's just pulling everybody down. Another book recommend on conflict resolution is the book Crucial Conversations. Crucial Conversations. It's the best book on how to have that difficult conversation that I've ever read. It just breaks it down real easy, lots of examples, and I would recommend that especially if you're really terrible at having those confrontations. Number 10 is to conduct periodic critiques. To conduct periodic critiques. So ask for feedback from the staff to evaluate how things are going. We talked about this in our last session, but it's really important to have some formal feedback loops to see how we're doing. The book I mentioned earlier that I just touched on is The Performance Factor by Macmillan. The Performance Factor, and it's worth getting the book just because of the surveys that are in it, that you can reproduce and give with your team. So like there's one on how are we doing with team communications. And like one of the lines is, I know how everyone on the team best likes to receive information. Like is it email, is it live, is it by phone? And boy, just that revelation helped our team communicate better. So that was in that book. You're never done creating a team culture. You see that on the screen. Every time you add a new player, it's a great time to reteach. I mentioned that. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, says Rick Warren. Most team members deep down want to know, let me know how I'm getting along here. Okay, I really want an appraisal. I really want, even though they're scared to death on that day, it doesn't have to be so scary. If we give regular coaching feedback along the way, the appraisal is just sort of this culminating moment where we get to hear all the things we're doing great and reinforces the things that, yep, we're going to make that into a goal this year. Pay attention to what's paying off, build on those strengths. And you see the quote, spending a little time calculating the number of things that go right is a simple but powerful way to reactivate our sense of wonder and gratitude, especially for that staff member. Look for signs of burnout, look for signs of procrastination. Sometimes that shows you that a staff member is either out of their gifted zone or they're overburdened right now. It's a great time to have a rejuvenating conversation. And finally, number 11. Number 11 is to resource your team. So all these are the top traits of terrific team leaders. I always had 10, and I added this 11th one because when I saw this one thing called the change puzzle before, it says that if, yes, I love the leader, I've got a relationship with the leader, I've got the vision, so I'm on board with the vision, you know, and I know the timeline for this, but I'm not resourced. You haven't given me a budget, you haven't given me supplies, or you haven't given me time in my schedule to actually do all those things. I actually get angry or irritated. I'm actually one of your star employees, but because you haven't resourced me, all of a sudden now I'm angry and resentful at the leadership because I want to do what you guys are saying to do, but I don't have the resources to do it. I hope that makes sense. So as a leader, get your people what they need to succeed. For instance, in my last church, we got a new maintenance supervisor. And so the first thing he did was listen to his custodial team. I love that about him. He was a youth pastor in another church, and he was also doing maintenance for us, maintenance leadership. And so what he said, what he found out from those guys is they wanted a new vacuum cleaner. Just a vacuum cleaner, because the old one was just all beat up, and their whole life was their vacuum cleaner. You know, all day long they were vacuuming the church. When he got him the new vacuum cleaner, he won them over for the rest of his time there. I know it sounds silly, but it's just that little resource made them feel like $1 million. So whenever it's in your power or your budget to help your people out, do it. Remove those obstacles so the path is clear for them to get the ministry done. Individuals must be sufficiently free of distractions to focus on team goals. Sometimes we need to learn together, like at a conference, to get them the training they need to bring back to the team to share and implement. Sometimes we'll send just a couple staff members off to a conference or a seminar, a local seminar. They'll come back and they'll report. It's a travesty if you send someone off to a learning experience and then you just keep going on with business as normal. Make sure that you always have them come back and report for the benefit of everyone there on the team, because in a way you're resourcing everyone by sending those two people off. Your goal is to create a learning environment for everyone on the team. You know, the key to victory is oneness of heart and of purpose. So I ask you this question in closing. Do you lead a group, those people you're sitting with there at the table and back at the church, are they a group or are they a true team? And you can look at these categories. Are we cooperating? Is there ownership of the people? Are they all contributing in their way? Do we have high trust? Is there honesty with one another and feedback? Are we being creative and not shooting at those ideas? Do we do conflict well, you know, so that the relationships are preserved? And how is our decision-making process? Is that shared among us? If you're doing those 8 things well, you probably have a true team, and it's going to be wonderful in ministry to walk the journey together. If any of those need work, you know which one it probably is. You can talk about it in your discussion here in just a few minutes. The key to victory is oneness of heart and purpose. And if you remember in John 17, what did Jesus say? That we would be one. That was his big prayer for us, not just the disciples, but for us, is that we would be one. That unity is so powerful, and so make sure you're always structuring all these team principles to get to oneness on your team. Hey, it's been a real joy and a privilege to be asked by CB Matrix to share some of what God has taught me over the years about leadership and self-leadership. I do look forward to any discussions that you might have offline or any way that I can help, again, through my contact information. So God bless you and have a fabulous 2016. Now get transparent with each other as you discuss how it's currently going with you in team building and what could get better. God bless.